A couple of weeks ago I successfully changed the oil in the front transfer box, and that set me on thinking I really ought to do the rear differential. So I've jacked the car up and I'm going to have a go at that. I've jacked the car up at the rear on the near side, directly underneath the spring. 2-tonne trolley jack and a support. Never lay under a car without support in case the jack decides to come down. This is the anti-roll bar bushes. This is the cross member, and then behind it is the differential. And you can see mine's very much rustier than you see in all the nice pictures. Now if you look up into that gap, that is where the filler plug is, and you need to get a 3/8 inch socket on that. So looking straight up, you can see the casing here, and at this point here is the plug, and a 3/8 inch socket will fit straight in there. Unfortunately, the cross member has a flange on the edge of it that gets in the way, so you have to get a really quite slim ratchet on there. I've got one of these really cheap ratchets that you get in the cheap crap sets that only cost about 10 quid, but they do have an advantage in that because they're lightweight, they'll go into small spaces, and you can then fit that into there and undo it. So there it is fitted in, and in order to undo it I put a long sleeve on here and just gently turned it. If you tried tapping it with a hammer, there's a good chance of rounding it. So I should now have enough just to move it. It's quite stiff because it's rusty, but it is undoing. So I'm going to take that out. I'm going to put a drip tray under the car. I've learnt my lesson from other work. Well, that was a bit of a fight to get that out. That's all looking pretty mucky, and that's really quite thick, isn't it? Well, like the plug on the transfer box, this is magnetic, and there are no dirty metal particles on it, so that's a very good sign. As the oil that's in the diff is quite thick and gungy, I've not been able to suck it out. So what I'm going to do is fill it up with good fresh oil, run it around for a while, and then have another go at sucking it out. I'm going to put the oil in with this syringe, and this is actually one I bought off eBay for pressurising the brakes on my cafe racer. Unfortunately it is only 30 millilitre, so it's not much at a time. It'd be better to go out and buy a much bigger one. So I'm using the same differential oil as I put in the transfer box. That's what it looks like. Very yellow. In order to get the drain plug back in, I realised I'd have to cut down this cheap old ratchet. It's only made out of tinsel, and I've got another one. That's what it did look like. It comes out of these real cheap sets that you buy for Christmas, more or less. And sometimes it's good to have cheap crap tools because you can muller them and make them into something more useful. So I could do it back up with that and then use the better one to do it up nice and tight. I've just been down to Halfords and invested £12 in an oil suction gun. I should have done this before, but they're actually really hard to find. And this was hidden away in a locked cabinet in the laser tools section. I've also gone down to Europarts and bought some more oil. It's exactly the same spec, but it's half the cost. It's only £5 for a litre, so that should do me. The suction gun looks pretty good. That's not very impressive though. I would have liked that to have been much longer. Also, that is stiff as hell, so I'm going to have to soften it up with hot water from the kettle to get it actually to fit on there. To complete the refill, I've put the car up on axle stands on both sides. Just makes it a bit higher and a bit easier to get at. I've also chopped the front wheels, and I've put the engine in gear so it can't possibly roll anywhere. There's a clean drip tray on the floor there. The car's a slight incline, which is a good thing because obviously oil is viscous and it will try to siphon itself out a little bit. I have a go at filling it back up now. The car is so much quieter even for putting only 200 millilitres in, so I'm thinking it is right on the limit. So the trick to this is to take the top off and then fill it up with oil, because there's no way it will actually suck the oil up into itself. This takes half a litre, so I'll measure that out carefully and fill it up. Right, so that's got a little less than a half a litre in it, and that is now ready to, as you see, come out. So I'm going to try and inject that into the car now. So I've managed to warm up this pipe with a kettle enough to get it really flexible so that it will go in the hole, and then hopefully now I can actually fill it up. I've squirted in that whole container, and you can see now it's starting to pour out, and it's actually coming out nice and clean, so I'm just going to quickly put the bung in and leave it at that. Getting the magnetic plug back in turned out to be a real bugger of a job, because I just could not get it square from laying under the car. So I've taken the wheel off and gone in through the side, and actually if you look in there you can see the differential there, and then I was able to get it back in and do it up nice and tight. Had some red sealant on it, so that'll hold it in place, and that's how much oil came back out of it before I managed to get the plug in. Right, it's the day after I put the oil in the diff. I didn't have enough time to run it yesterday. It's a nice bright sunny morning, but it is actually really cold. It's about 4 degrees. So we'll give the car a run down the road and see how it sounds. I've put the iPod right in the back of the car, effectively over the diff. So hopefully that'll pick up some of the sound. Okay, so the car's completely cold. It's 4 degrees outside. I'm just going to stroll down this road at 60 miles an hour. It's sounding nice and smooth.